Welcome back to Mark's History Channel. Today you travel back to one of the most dramatic moments in world history. A city that had stood for more than 1,000 years. Walls that no army had ever truly conquered. An empire that once ruled the eastern Mediterranean. And a young sultan determined to accomplish what generations before him could not. This is the story of the fall of Constantinople. Few events changed history as completely as the capture of this legendary city in 1453. It marked the end of the Byzantine Empire, the last surviving remnant of the Roman Empire, and announced the rise of a new world power. It reshaped trade, religion, warfare, and politics for centuries to come. So settle in as you witness the final days of Constantinople. For more than 11 centuries, Constantinople stood as one of the richest and most powerful cities on earth. Founded by Emperor Constantine the Great in the 4th century, it became the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, later known as the Byzantine Empire. Massive stone walls protected magnificent churches, crowded markets, and the famous Hagia Sophia. Merchants arrived from Europe, Asia, and Africa carrying silk, spices, gold, and knowledge. The city was often described as the crossroads of the world. Yet by the 15th century, its glory had faded. Centuries of war, civil conflict, and economic decline had reduced the empire to little more than the city itself and a handful of scattered territories. The disastrous sack of Constantinople during the Fourth Crusade in 1204 had left deep scars from which the empire never fully recovered. Although the Byzantines eventually reclaimed their capital, their strength had been permanently weakened. Meanwhile, a new power was rising to the east. The Ottoman Turks steadily expanded across Anatolia and the Balkans. One Byzantine province after another disappeared beneath the Ottoman banner. By the early 1400s, Constantinople had become an isolated island. Surrounded almost entirely by Ottoman lands, the city still possessed its mighty Theodosian Walls, but it lacked the soldiers and resources needed to defend them for long. In 1451, a 19-year-old ruler named Mehmed II became Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. Many European leaders underestimated him because of his age. They believed he lacked experience. They believed he would be easy to manipulate. They could not have been more mistaken. Mehmed had studied history since childhood. He admired Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar. Above all, he dreamed of capturing Constantinople. Whoever possessed the city would command the gateway between Europe and Asia. More importantly, conquering Constantinople would secure his place among history's greatest rulers. He wasted no time preparing. Across the Bosporus Strait, Mehmed ordered the construction of the massive fortress known as Rumeli Hisarı. Built in only a few months, it allowed the Ottomans to control nearly all traffic entering the Black Sea. Merchant ships refusing inspection faced destruction. Constantinople was slowly being strangled before the siege had even begun. Inside the city, Emperor Constantine XI Palaiologos understood the danger. He desperately appealed to Western Europe for military assistance. Messages reached the Pope, Venice, Genoa, and the kingdoms of Europe. Some volunteers answered the call, including the skilled Genoese commander Giovanni Giustiniani, whose soldiers would become vital to the city's defense. But the large armies Constantine hoped for never arrived. Political divisions, religious disagreements, and conflicts elsewhere kept most European rulers from acting. As winter turned to spring in 1453, the Ottoman army assembled outside the city. Historians continue to debate its exact size, but modern estimates often place Mehmed's force between 60,000 and 80,000 soldiers. Opposing them stood roughly 7,000 defenders, including Byzantine troops, Genoese volunteers, Venetian sailors, and citizens willing to fight for their home. The odds were overwhelming. Yet Constantinople still possessed one incredible advantage: its walls. The Theodosian Walls stretched for nearly 7 kilometers across the western side of the city. Built in multiple defensive layers, they had resisted countless invasions for nearly 1,000 years. Huns, Persians, Arabs, Bulgarians, and Rus armies had all failed to break through them. Many believed the walls were impossible to conquer. Mehmed intended to prove otherwise. To accomplish this, he recruited a Hungarian engineer named Orban, who designed enormous bronze cannons unlike anything Europe had ever seen. The largest bombard required hundreds of men and dozens of oxen simply to move it into position. Every thunderous shot shook the ground itself, hurling gigantic stone balls against the ancient defenses. On April 6, 1453, the siege officially began. Day after day, Ottoman artillery pounded the walls. Clouds of dust filled the air as sections collapsed under the relentless bombardment. Each night, Byzantine defenders rushed to repair the damage with stones, timber, and earth before sunrise. It became a deadly routine: destroy by day, rebuild by night. The struggle spread beyond the walls. A massive iron chain stretched across the entrance to the Golden Horn, preventing Ottoman warships from entering the city's protected harbor. It appeared to be an impossible obstacle. Then Mehmed revealed one of the boldest military plans of the entire campaign. Instead of sailing through the harbor entrance, Ottoman engineers constructed wooden tracks across nearby hills. Hundreds of ships were pulled overland on greased logs under cover of darkness. When dawn arrived, the defenders looked across the Golden Horn in disbelief. Ottoman ships floated inside the harbor behind their defenses. The impossible had happened. Now Constantinople faced attacks from both land and sea. Despite this devastating setback, morale inside the city remained remarkably strong. Citizens gathered inside churches to pray. Priests walked through the streets offering encouragement. Soldiers defended every breach with determination. Emperor Constantine XI refused every opportunity to escape. He chose to remain alongside his people until the very end. Weeks passed. The walls weakened. Food supplies dwindled. Exhaustion spread through the defenders. Still, they refused to surrender. Finally, Mehmed prepared one last massive assault. Before dawn on May 29th, waves of Ottoman soldiers advanced toward the battered walls. Drums echoed across the battlefield. Trumpets sounded. Cannon fire continued without pause. The first attacks were beaten back, then the second. Casualties mounted on both sides. Everything changed when Giovanni Giustiniani suffered a serious wound and was carried away from the fighting. His departure badly damaged the defenders' morale at the most critical moment. Soon afterward, Ottoman troops forced their way through damaged sections of the defenses. One account also describes a small gate known as the Cerco Porta being left unsecured during the confusion. Although historians continue to debate exactly how significant this incident was. Once enough Ottoman soldiers entered the city, organized resistance began to collapse. Emperor Constantine XI reportedly threw aside the symbols of his rank and joined the fighting as an ordinary soldier. He disappeared into the chaos and was never seen alive again. His body was never identified with complete certainty, giving rise to legends that endured for centuries. By sunrise, Constantinople belonged to Mehmed II. After more than 1,100 years, the Byzantine Empire had come to an end. The victorious Sultan rode through the city toward Hagia Sophia, the greatest church in the Christian world. Rather than destroying it, he ordered it converted into a mosque, while allowing many parts of the city's population to remain. Over time, Mehmed encouraged people from across his empire to settle in Constantinople, restoring it as a thriving capital. It soon became the heart of the Ottoman Empire, known today as Istanbul. The consequences of the city's fall reached far beyond its walls. Many Greek scholars fled westward, carrying precious ancient manuscripts that contributed to the intellectual movement now known as the Renaissance. European kingdoms increasingly searched for new trade routes to Asia, helping inspire the great voyages of exploration that would soon reshape the world. Military engineers everywhere recognized that powerful gunpowder artillery had forever changed the nature of siege warfare, making even the strongest medieval fortifications vulnerable. Historians still debate whether the fall of Constantinople truly ended the Middle Ages. Some see it as the moment the medieval world gave way to the early modern era. Others argue that history changes more gradually. Yet few disagree that the events of 1453 transformed global history. The Roman Empire had survived in one form or another for nearly 15 centuries. It endured barbarian invasions, plagues, civil wars, and religious conflict. In the end, it fell not because its defenders lacked courage, but because the world around them had changed. New weapons, new ambitions, new empires. The walls that had protected Constantinople for 1,000 years could no longer stop the future. Thank you for watching Mark's History Channel. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like, subscribe, and join us for more fascinating journeys into the events that changed history forever.